Okay, so we're starting chapter 7, but before we begin, let's review some of the stuff that you should have learned in elementary school. So this is prerequisite skills. So this is not the grade 9 course, this is elementary school. So what we're going to be looking at are angles. And when we name an angle, like this triangle, the point here where these two lines meet is called a vertex. And when I have more than one vertex, like this A vertex, B and C, these are called vertices. So when I'm naming this angle here A, which is the angle in between these two lines, sometimes it's called angle A, and we use an angle symbol, or we could call it BAC, whichever is in the middle is the angle, or you could call it CAB. So whichever letter is in the center is the name of the angle. Okay, so complementary angles. These angles add to 90 degrees. So here I have a 90-degree angle, so maybe I have this angle here A, this angle here B. If I add them together, it's going to be 90 degrees. Supplementary angles are on the same straight line, right? A straight line is an angle of 180 degrees. So let's suppose I had my straight line and I divided it into 3 sections. So let's suppose I call that this angle A, this angle B, this angle C. If I add up all of those angles, it should equal 180 degrees. Okay? The other thing you got to remember is that opposite angles are equal to each other. So these are opposite, they're the same. These are opposite, these are the same. The one thing we have to understand when we're doing angles is nothing is drawn to scale. So you will not pull out a protractor and measure it. If you do that, everything will be wrong. Okay, so nothing is drawn to scale. Everything we do is algebraic. So now let's look at angles and parallel lines. So parallel lines, remember, are lines that never meet. And we usually have arrows to show that they're parallel. Sometimes you'll have 2 arrows. It doesn't matter. Okay? So what I have cutting the 2 parallel lines, this line here is called a transversal. Okay? Now I can do, and I have another set here of parallel lines. Okay? And I have another transversal. Okay, we can draw patterns, and one of the patterns we can draw is called the Z pattern. Okay, so between the parallel line and the transversal, you draw a Z like that. And what that means that these angles here are equal to each other. So if this is 65 degrees, this is 65 degrees. Now the Z pattern can go the other way too, like this. So this is 110. This is 110, like that. Okay, now same thing, we got parallel lines again. We got these parallel lines. We got a transversal. Okay, we can draw a C pattern. These aren't equal, they add to 180 degrees. So if I draw a C like this, if this is 110, if I take 180 and I subtract 110, I get 70 degrees, and that goes here. Okay? And then the same, it can go backwards also, like this. Okay? And then here, again, I can draw a C. If this is 80, then I know this is 100 because they add to 180 degrees. Okay? Now an F pattern. Again, we got our parallel lines here. Again, we have our transversal. So the F pattern, they're equal. So I can draw an F like this. This angle is the same as that top one. So this is 70. I can draw my F backwards like this. So if this is 115, this is 115. Okay, same idea here. If this is 110, this is 110. And then the same thing here. If this is 75 and this is 75, and that's my F pattern. This is not grade 9, this is review of grade 7 and 8. So let's look at some examples, okay? So here we have an example. There's more than one way to do this, okay? So if you're thinking of answering this question in a different way, it doesn't make it wrong, it just makes it different, okay? So we're going to be looking at complementary, supplementary, opposite, and these Z, C, and F patterns to answer these questions. So you're going to look, and you should notice that you have parallel lines here, okay? You should notice you have a transversal. So what I start doing is I start looking for patterns. And I notice here that I have a Z pattern. So that tells me that this Y value, they're the same. This is 70. Okay? So now to find my X, I could draw another pattern. I could draw a C pattern like this. And I know C patterns add to 180 degrees. So if I take 180, I take away 70, and I get 110 degrees, and that's what X equals. I didn't have to do it that way. I could have noticed that these were supplementary, right? Remember, supplementary angles also add to 180. So there's more than one way to do this, okay? Now let's look at B. Again, I have parallel lines. I have this transversal, right? Again, there's more than one way to do it. Okay, so when I look at it, I see that I have supplementary angles right here. So I know supplementary angles add to 180 degrees. If I take 180, take away that 120, I get 60. That's one way to do it. Okay. Then I notice also that, again, there's more than one way to do this, that I have the F pattern. Hold on, so this here is 60. So if I have the F pattern, if X is 60, this right here is 60, right? These are the same. And then again, I could do supplementary angles here to find Y. So it's 180, subtract that 60, so Y is 120 degrees. Again, you may have thought to do it a different way. Okay, there's more than one way to answer these questions. So I'll look at C. Again, I have parallel lines here. So I see I have a Z pattern here. So I know with the Z pattern, these angles are the same. So my A value is 34 degrees. Okay. So let's look at these ones. Again, you should start drawing patterns, Z patterns, F patterns, C patterns. And here I notice I have an F pattern. These angles are the same. So I know now X is 120 degrees. Again, E, start drawing patterns, Z's, F's. Here I notice I have a C pattern. I know with the C pattern, they add to 180 degrees. So I take 180, I subtract that 40, so I know that my R is 140 degrees. Okay, again, more than one way to do it. This one here, there's lots of things we have to figure out. Okay, so again, where you begin is up to you. I notice that 63 and this Q, they're opposite each other. So I know this is 63 degrees. Okay, so I know that's what Q equals. Another thing I know that these are supplementary. So to find P, I take 180, I subtract 63, which I get 117, I believe. Yep, 117 degrees. So if this is 117 degrees, I know R is also 117 degrees because they're opposite each other. Okay, so now I can draw patterns. I can draw the Z pattern here. I know that T is also 117 because they're equal. Okay? So if T is 117, then I know V is also 117. Now to find S and U, I could do supplementary angles. I could do the C pattern. Okay, so if I do supplementary, if I take for U, or I can do the F pattern, that might be faster. The F pattern like this. If this is 63, this is 63, so I know U is 63. And because U and S are across from each other, they're opposite, they are also 60, it's also 63. So like I said, more than one way to do it. Let's look at the more, high school parallel lines, because we've got some algebra here. So again, you've got your parallel lines, you've got your transversal. So now look for patterns. So draw Z's, draw F's, draw C's. So here I have a Z pattern. I know with the Z pattern, these angles are equal to each other. So I need to make them equal. So 3x plus 15 equals 2x plus 30. This should look familiar because this is an equation. We did similar stuff in chapter 4. Now to solve it, bring all the x's to one side, anything without x to the other. Remember to change the signs when you move. Okay, so this tells me my x is 15, but that doesn't tell me the angle yet. I need to sub it in. So if I do 3x plus 15 to figure that angle, I do 3 times 15 plus 15. So 3 times 15 is 45, right? And then I add 15, so my angle is 60 degrees. If I did it correctly, this should also be 60. So let's just quickly check it. 2 times 15 plus 30 is also 60 degrees. Okay, let's look at this last one. Again, you're going to be drawing patterns. Here we have parallel lines again, and our transversal. And hopefully you can see the pattern there, which is a C pattern. Now remember, C patterns are not, the angles are not the same. The angles add to 180. So we need to add them together, and we know it equals 180 degrees. So keep all x's on one side. Anything without an x, move it. Don't forget to change the sign. So here I get 5x equals 135. Divide each side by 5. So then I know that x equals 27. Now remember, we need to figure out the angle now. So we're going to do 5 plus 4 times 27. So I did this one. So I know 4 times 27 is 108. Add the 5, which is 113 degrees. Okay, then we're going to do it here, x plus 40. So 27 plus 40 is 67 degrees. If I did it correctly, what should these equal when I add them together? It should equal 180. And does it? Yes. We're done.